This is Small Biz Florida, the podcast designed and produced specifically for Florida small business owners and entrepreneurs. Small Biz Florida, talk that works for Florida. This podcast is supported by the Florida SBDC Network, providing the tools, strategies, and expertise to help Florida's business community thrive. Visit the Florida SBDC online at www.floridasbdc.org or contact your local office and get started on your path to success today.
And this is Small Biz Florida, the podcast and broadcast. It's all things business across the state of Florida. I am Tom Kindred, your host for Small Biz Florida. And we've got with us today a very special guest that are representing an extremely unique, innovative organization that is doing great things across the state of Florida. And they've got an upcoming event that we want to talk about. It is our very good friends, Phil Centoze and Zoraida Velasco from FloridaMakes. Zoraida and Phil, welcome to Small Biz Florida.
Thank you, Tom. Good day.
And you guys are like, you're coming into this podcast like from Chicago or something, right? I mean, you guys, this is incredible. I was lucky enough to get you guys all the way from Chicago. Is that right?
That's right.
Yes,
Reporting live from Chicago today.
That's right. Live from Chicago. I mean, there's no boundaries with Small Biz Florida here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're at our national conference, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership National Conference for the entire network.
Wow. Again, appreciate your work and appreciate you guys out there representing Florida's manufacturing community. So we appreciate that. So let's start, as I always do on Small Biz Florida. Zoraida, let's start with you. Just a little bit of your background and kind of your pathway to FloridaMakes.
Sure. I have worked, Tom, in economic development my entire career. In some of those roles were in government economic development and in the Economic Development Commission in the Central Florida area, and then I work at the state level. I then took off for about 3 years to do graduate school, lived in Boston, lived in South Africa, did a lot of entrepreneurial social impact work while I was there. And then came back home. That was the promise to my husband. I'd go off, travel the world for graduate school, but come home, and was lucky to be hired at FloridaMakes in 2016 at 7 months pregnant as Director of Strategic Programs and Partnerships to help build the work that they were just starting then. The MEP ran by FloridaMakes was granted that in 2015. So we've been around for about 8 years now.
Nice. Phil, sort of the same question.
Okay, well, you may not believe it, but I actually retired from the Coast Guard. But since then, over the last 25 years, I've worked in manufacturing and with manufacturers, primarily in Florida. I've worked with the Regional Manufacturer Association in South Florida very closely for a number of years, bringing services to the manufacturers there, and then once FloridaMakes got a foothold and was created in 2015, I moved to FloridaMakes to provide the same kinds of services to manufacturers statewide.
Nice. Well, we appreciate the work you're doing with FloridaMakes. So let's talk about FloridaMakes. Purpose, mission of this organization.
So the FloridaMakes is a manufacturing extension partnership for the state of Florida. There is an MEP for short, center in every state of the union and in Puerto Rico. That program is funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce out of an agency called the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST for short. And NIST is the nation's laboratory. They determine how much a pound is a pound and are looking at technologies that some of us won't even get to experience in our lifetime. And they are in charge of managing the MEP program. There's 51 centers in every state, one in every state and in Puerto Rico. And our mission is to increase productivity and technological performance of the manufacturing sector. And so that's the goal for the program. And we run that program in Florida. We do that through a broker model and partnerships with the regional manufacturers associations across the state. There's 14 of them, and embed business advisors in those operations. And those business advisors are seasoned manufacturing executives, similar to Phil, who have worked with manufacturers and know the ins and outs of running an operation and add value to these regional manufacturers associations in making sure that we're growing and we're retaining manufacturing in Florida.
And again, you make a great point too, because obviously as a guy like myself, been around Florida my whole life, in fact, came out of really the agricultural sector in business for many years. I mean, Florida's always traditionally been sort of an ag tourism based marketplace. How is manufacturing changing, the landscape of Florida industry?
Well, it's actually manufacturing has been growing in Florida since before the Great Recession back around 2007, 2008. It's grown beyond what it was before that recession, and it's actually quite large. Because agriculture and tourism is so large in Florida, the percentage of state GDP for the manufacturing sector looks small. It's like around 5.1, 5.2%. But when you look at the absolute numbers of manufacturers and the productivity of manufacturing in Florida, just in the three big counties in the southeast part of the state, there are around 6,000 manufacturing companies, over 20 or 21,000 statewide. But when you look again at those three big counties, there are more manufacturers there than there are in many states across the country, just those three counties alone. And so it has been growing. There's been a pretty good environment for the manufacturers to continue to grow through some incentives and some other policy and programs that have been put in place. But it really is a matter of growing momentum on the part of the manufacturers, looking for improvements, looking for those productivity improvements that they can make. And the pandemic actually has pushed that along. There's more look at advanced technologies because of the pandemic, because it's hard now, as you know, to find and hire the right talent across the state.
And even with that and the impact of the pandemic, if you look at the numbers for Florida in terms of jobs, Florida, as of August 2022, had over 400,000 manufacturing jobs. That's an increase of 27,800 or so jobs over the year. And so it's an industry that, even though, not manufacturing, COVID impacted it, and like it did many other industries, it's much more resilient than the agriculture industry or the service industry in the state.
Right. And, we obviously can see this right along the Treasure Coast where we're kind of headquartered and housed at Indian River State College. I mean, we've seen certainly a very visible uptick in small advanced manufacturing operations, facilities, in all kinds of different manufacturing, all kinds of different products. We can see it right here along our Treasure Coast. So it's definitely happening. And I guess you touched on the workforce. Manufacturing, just like every really sector, is being affected by workforce. Is it any worse or better in manufacturing? What are your thoughts there?
Well, it
still works directly with them. Yeah.
It is, an issue for many of the manufacturers. They're looking for ways to improve the way that they can hire employees and then retain them. That's more than half the work is trying to retain the people that you have. If they meet your skill requirements and everything else. And with that, it's very again, the manufacturers' eyes have been opened, I think, into looking for better ways to be able to retain. And the whole make more concept, the whole, manufacturing, what we call the manufacturing ecosystem around the state, is essential in being able to have the right approaches in place so that the manufacturers can take advantage of that and make it. It'll never be easy, but at least hopefully it'll be easier for manufacturers to be able to hire hire the right skills, hire the people with the right skills.
And you bring up a great term, Phil, ecosystem. I mean, the whole purpose behind our little podcast here is to highlight and create awareness for small business assistance and resources across the state of Florida, and there's a lot of them. And I think you bring up an excellent point about the manufacturing sector. There is a whole ecosystem around manufacturing now. Awful lot of support, training, organizations like Enterprise Florida and FloridaMakes and just all kinds of great support and resources to help small manufacturers. Is that a fair statement about the support for manufacturing in the state of Florida?
Absolutely. And some people won't believe this, but there's over 23,000 manufacturers in the state of Florida. 80% of those manufacturers have 20 or less employees. So the majority are small businesses.
Right. Yeah. And, I think something else, and Phil and I were kind of talking before we went on the air about some old folks we've known for a long time in this sector. But, we used to, when we were going through the fast track manufacturing training program here along the Treasure Coast, we told people these are good careers. These are not just jobs. I mean, positions that you take with a small manufacturer, advanced manufacturing, these are careers, benefits, opportunities for growth. Is that also a fair statement about kind of the pathway one can take in manufacturing?
Yes, and that actually is where the manufacturers need to be in order to attract and keep good people with the right talent to have them on board and be able to produce what the customers are asking for. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the average wage in Florida for manufacturing is almost $70,000 a year. And so when you compare that to other industries, it's a good proposition, right? For somebody who may not necessarily have considered manufacturing before. But, we struggle with how do you get those people into the pipeline? How do you get them to realize that manufacturing isn't dirty, dingy, dangerous, and then make an above average living off of an industry, and you don't necessarily need a 4-year degree.
Right. Yeah, good point. All right. So most important thing we want to make sure we cover is you guys have your annual event coming up. It is the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit, a incredible event. I got to attend last year. Very impressed with the vendors, the suppliers that were there, the networking opportunities, the learning opportunities that were presented at the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit. So talk to us a little bit about the summit. Give us, again, mission, purpose of the summit.
Sure. So the summit has been in existence since 2018. Like I said earlier, we only started delivering services as the MEP in 2016. So we're pretty new to this ecosystem of economic development, if you will. And we noticed that the Florida Chamber did events, Associated Industries did events, Enterprise Florida, Career Source, all these big, statewide organizations were hosting events that always talked about manufacturing as an industry that could help diversify an economy, high wage, high value, et cetera, right? But nobody ever talked about it as an industry, as, that only be the only topic. So we approached all of those organizations and said, hey, you all have a stake in this. And so since 2018, in partnership with Enterprise Florida, Career Source Florida, Associated Industries of Florida, and the Florida Chamber, we've been hosting the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit more as a stakeholder meeting, right? So it's gathering all of the resources, all of the SBDCs, all of the career sources, all of the economic developers, everybody who has a stake in providing a service or a resource to manufacturing, to talk about what is it that you're doing, how are you doing it, and how can we duplicate what you're doing if it's working somewhere else in the state, or expand that program. One of the things we noticed when we first started running the MEP was that there's all these resources like you were talking about, Tom, but manufacturers first weren't taking advantage of them. And then in some cases, they were being duplicated. And so there's no need for competition. There's over 23,000 manufacturers. We're barely scratching the surface, right? And so how do we all come together and work on a strategy for the state to really grow manufacturing as an industry here and continue to serve those companies without reinventing the wheel? And so that's the purpose of the summit, is to come together. This year, usually the summit will focus on 4 things: business growth, technology adoption, talent development, and business climate, so the policy legislative piece. But last year, the talent piece was such an important piece of the conversation that this year we decided to make it just about talent, building the skills, building the talent pipeline and bridging the skills gap. And working towards duplicating things that are really already in place and are successful for the ecosystem.
Okay. Give us the when and the where for the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit.
It will take place in Orlando at the GuideWell Innovation Center in Lake Nona, October 12th and 13th. It's 2 half days. We will also be honoring the Sterling Manufacturing Business Excellence Award winners that were announced in May. Phil actually manages that entire process. We will be honoring the Florida Companies to Watch honorees that were manufacturers, and the Florida Advanced Technological Education Center. They handed out some awards earlier this year as well to educators and champions, and so those people will be honored. And then we will be announcing Florida's Apprentice of the Year Award and Employer of Choice Awards. And then we'll close off the evening on the first night with the Bob Privatola Manufacturing Leadership Award, which is an award given to a manufacturer who has demonstrated leadership in the industry, not just in their day-to-day job, but in really making an impact for the industry in manufacturing and the ecosystem in the state.
All right. And there will be vendors, suppliers that are, is there an exhibit hall as part of the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit?
Yeah, this year there will be a small exhibit hall. In years past, we've had a large, we've even had boats in the exhibit hall. The venue we have this year is a little bit more intimate. We're doing that on purpose to change the format a little bit. So there will be exhibitors. Majority are, resources to connect the ecosystem with each other, service providers, etc. And then the venue itself is a 360-degree stage, and the audience is very close to the stage. So it's truly going to be a conversation of the stakeholders. It won't just be you receiving information, the entire time, but being part of that brainstorming session.
Okay. Who is the textbook attendee of the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit?
So you'll see workforce development boards, you will see economic developers, you will see government agencies, Department of Education, Department of Economic Opportunity, Department of Transportation. Who am I missing, Phil? Service providers.
So Career Source, the community and the state colleges, and it's really that ecosystem that we're talking about. Those are the attendees, and that's a really good thing for the manufacturers again, because if the ecosystem is coming together, they're learning the real needs of the manufacturing sector, and now they can all start to point in the same direction. So they're not not being redundant in some of the services they provide, and not being, at cross purposes with what they provide. And that's nothing but good for the manufacturing sector in Florida.
Nice. How does one learn more about the summit, learn more about Florida Makes? Is Florida Makes a membership organization, or is it really more the RMAs that are the membership organizations? And I say RMAs, Regional Manufacturing Associations, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So Florida Makes is a 501c3 public-private partnership, nonprofit. We don't have members. Our members are those of the members of that network of regional associations, and GrowFL and the Florida Advanced Technological Education Center are all part of that network. The membership is at the Regional Manufacturer Association level. So manufacturers and service providers all join those associations, and all of those associations will be present at the summit, and they've invited their members as well.
Okay. All right. So again, go back to the question: how does one learn more about the summit? Maybe register, and then how does one learn more about Florida Makes?
Sure. So the summit, because it's hosted by several partners, it has its own website. It's FloridaMakemore.com. You can register there, see pictures from previous years, etc. Hotel information is on that website as well. And Florida Makes, our website is FloridaMakes.com.
Okay. Small Biz Florida, your very own Small Biz Florida. We will be at the MakeMore Manufacturing Summit. We will be interviewing those suppliers, vendors, stakeholders to make sure that all of the great information that's being exchanged and presented at the MakeMore Summit, you will have an opportunity to hear all about it on future podcasts right here. So again, just one more time, remind us dates of the summit again.
October 12th and 13th.
Okay. And one more time, the actual summit website?
FloridaMakemore.com.
Okay. It is Phil Centoze, who serves as the Director of Performance Assessment, and it is Zoraida Velasco, who is the Executive Vice President of Florida Makes. Incredible organization, guys. Florida Makes, listen, just in the last few years, I've gotten familiar with who you are, and what you do to support the manufacturing sector in this state, and it is incredible work. So we appreciate what you're doing. It's an important segment for the future of Florida, and looking forward to attending the MakeMore Summit.
Thank you, Tom. We look forward to seeing you there.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
We'll be there.
And with that, we'll bring to close this segment of Small Biz Florida. But again, always stay tuned because there's more to come. Thanks.
This has been Small Biz Florida, created and produced by the Florida Small Business Development Center at Indian River State College. Your host for Small Biz Florida is Tom Kindred. Partners for Small Biz Florida include WPSL and WSTU and Indian River State College, named the 2019 winner of the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence.